got Zoe and Mitch here on the platform as well. So loads of different things we can cover. But I thought to come to you first, Piers, and talk about how do you go about funding a business in 2021?
So there's no easy way to cover how do you fund a business, because there's so many different variables, and it depends on what kind of business it is, what stage you're at, and your startup. And it also depends massively, and this can be a huge part of it in terms of your own sort of social capital. Because if you've got savings, or you've got a nice job and you're thinking of leaving it and starting a business, or you've got family or friends that are willing to back you, that's quite different to if you're sort of struggling financially. Maybe your credit isn't what it could be. So it depends massively. And I think I've got a YouTube channel which is nascent, shall we say, and there's a video on there, and it's called I think it's called How to Raise Startup Finance. And what I do in that video is, which is probably better to watch that rather than go through it all now, but there's like a model I kind of use, these sort of concentric rings. And the idea is that when you're starting a business, and how easy it is to move out from the center outwards, and these concentric rings, kind of depends on your social capital, which means your networks, and do you understand finance and have relationships and the right contacts. But in the center, the people that tend to fund you initially are the people that know you extremely well, and they even love you. So these are the people that you come out of the shower and say, I've got a wacky idea, I'm going to leave my job, and your spouse, partner, parents, or whoever it might be say, great, here's some money, off you go. And they're really backing you. Now, as you move out, maybe you're talking to that might be a couple of £1,000 to get you going, or 5 or 10K. As you kind of move out now, you're thinking, well, I need a bit more money now to get this thing going. Then you start looking at your sort of wider network. So friends of the family, ex-colleagues, co-workers, whatever you call them. And then they're going to start saying, okay, well, I know you, I kind of like you, trust you to some extent, but this is money, I don't particularly want to lose it. Tell me more about it. So they start to ask more questions. And then if you get past that, then you start to need that might be, 50, 100K maybe. Then you start to need some real money, actually. And then you start talking to angels. And angels can be people that introduced you, getting people in your network, which is why having a network and social capital is important. It can also be people that are introduced to you who don't know you from Adam. It can be more structured things like angel networks, where there's kind of a structure and a process. So as you move into that kind of that ring, they're going to start to ask questions about the business and your business plan, not just you. And they're also going to start to do due diligence. So they're going to start to wheel in lawyers and accountants, and the angels looking at your business may have spent decades in that sector and know more about it than you do. So they start to ask lots of questions, and you start to get into more professional sort of third-party arm's length due diligence. They will also then start to see your shareholder agreements will begin to become thicker. They'll start to want to protect the downside, and they can do some of that through tax schemes like EAS, SCIS, but they might want their money out first. They might want a preference. They may want some kind of protections, veto rights, a board seat. And as you move outside of that, then you start getting to venture capital. And that's where you get into a process that can take, 6 to 12 months. And you've got to kind of know what you're doing. And you've got to make sure you're trying to push a round peg through a round hole, I always say. So understand the market and maybe seek some support and advice to do it. So it's kind of those different rings. And it depends on where you are, what your business is. Now, some people will jump straight from an idea to a little bit of seed, their own money, to venture capital. A lot of tech companies do that. Some people will build a business where it's, family, friends, it's your money. And then you don't need to, not everyone wants to build a big unicorn. Then you grow the business slowly and steadily over time, and you start to plow back profits, because you can actually generate profits. So that's how you go about funding a business. Very, very simple. That's equity. There's also debt, and I won't cover debt in too much detail now, but debt really requires. Think of a mortgage when you're trying to buy a house. What are they looking for? The underlying asset is the house, and they'll take security over it, which they might do on your business or your own personal assets. That's a personal guarantee. And that means that then if it goes wrong, they'll take the asset off you. They want to make sure you've got a cash flow in case of a mortgage, that's income. They want to check you've got a job, and they'll look at your bank statements and that good stuff. So you need assets or some kind of cash flow, that's steady cash flow, that gives the lender the confidence that they'll get their money back and you can pay the interest. And if you can't, they can take an asset off you. So that's debt as well. Now, there's the startup loans company, which I know Alex knows well, because he used to work with a Virgin startup. you're one of the delivery partners for British Business Bank that operates the Startup Loans Company. So I should say that because I'm on the board of British Business Bank. That's slightly different. So that's, if you don't have access to that kind of family, friends, that capital right in the center, you can then apply to the Startup Loans Company and they'll give you a personal loan that you then use to start your business. What they also do though is give you support in terms of writing a business plan and going through the motions in terms of making sure you kind of know what you're doing and you know what you're getting into. So that's kind of debt that it doesn't require all that kind of cash flow and assets. You can even have a check of credit history actually. So there's that an opportunity as well. But that within that model I've just outlined there, that is almost the whole of the funding world. Now, as you begin to grow a business, there's things now, there's fintechs, there's revenue funding, there's ways of using your credit card receipts to fund it. There's lots of fascinating new ways in which you can raise money, but they're when you're a bit more established. So I hope that covers it.
Yeah, it is one of those subjects, isn't it? It does massively depend on where you are in your journey when it comes to starting a business and what resources you've got. And yeah, when I was at Virgin Startup, I think we just reached now, I saw the 4,000th person that they've helped through that scheme, but the scheme overall, there's many delivery partners throughout the UK. And Richard Branson, they were interviewing the person who was the 4,000th, and then Richard popped up on screen, which the 4,000th recipient of the startup loan was not expecting. So that was quite a good.
I mean, the average startup loan is you can borrow up to 25,000 for each person. So if there's two founders, that's 50. I know one business is a brewery company I was on a stage with, and there was I guess 6 brothers. So wow. I think they played the game and raised 25 grand each. I think they've limited now to a maximum of 4. Yeah. But the average loan actually is about £7,200. It's just to give you an idea. So that's what people are using to start businesses. And I know you have, Alex, as well. But I've met so many entrepreneurs. I've said to them, so how do you get going? How do you get started? And they were like, startup loans. So it makes a difference, because for these people, for no fault of their own, without that capital injection, they would not have started a business.
Alex, I have to say, it's Ryan here. My very first business was funded by startup loans, and I didn't have a single qualification to my name. I had no business experience whatsoever. I just had an idea and a bit. Sorry, I got a phone call. Just had an idea and a business plan, and the whole process was seamless and exceptional. And I suppose you could say that I owe every success that I've found thereafter to startup loans. They're incredible.
And who did you go through as a delivery partner with that? Did you go directly through startup loans, Ryan, or one of the other?
Transmit.
Okay, yeah. And did you get a mentor as part of that? Because that's something else we haven't covered yet, and maybe somebody else wants to cover that as what you need to start a business in 21. Do you need a mentor? But did you get a mentor to help you with that business once you got the loan?
I didn't get a mentor. However, I did get free membership to the FSB.
Yeah.
Okay. I did get free membership to the FSB.
Yeah, I think now you do get a mentor, but you also get a lot of support to write a business plan. They're not just saying, "Oh, thank you for calling. Send me your bank details. We'll send you £7,200." That's just not how it works. There's quite a process, and not everyone will get through that, because it becomes clear that they can't run a business. But I think the other thing, I mean, Alex, you probably see this a lot, is that people get hung up on tech startups, right? And it's about, I've got to build the next flipping Google, all right? The vast majority, the 5.7 million businesses in the UK, 74% of them are essentially sole traders. So there's about 36,000 visible scale-ups. If you look at the sort of Scale-Up Institute and their research, and they're the kind of the ones that, they're kind of growing from, 20% a year. They've got more than 10 employees. So the vast majority of businesses, ones that exist, the ones that have been started, they are people that are building a business around a skill they have, or something they enjoy doing, or something they're good at. They're not tech startups. And a lot of the noise and the oxygen gets sucked out of the room by these kind of high growth startups, which are very exciting, very important for the economy, but that's not where the vast majority of capital is going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if Jeremy wanted to come in on the business plan side of things, because my connection with Jeremy, funnily enough, was with Virgin Startup. Let me know if you're there, Jeremy. Flash your mic. If not, I will look for Anybody else? Okay, so let's move on. What else do you need to start a business in 2021? So we briefly covered funding and virgin startup loans. So flash your mic if you're on the panel. I'm going to go straight to Lucy Yen, and then Rachel, and then Zoe, and then I'm going to scroll down. I can see Pete's joined us. We got Beju and Jeanette and Marvin as well. So we're going to get through everybody. Appreciate your patience. We've got a super busy room and loads of different things that we can add. Hand raising is going to be switched back on now, open to everybody. So if you do have a question around starting your own business or growing your own small business, then please pop your hand up, and we'd love to try and help you with the panel today. But I'm going to go straight to Lucy Yen. Over to you.
Thanks, Alex. Cheers, folks. Yeah, first one is very practical, and that is getting the absolute best broadband Wi-Fi setup that you possibly can in your home. Just flash your mics if you struggled with the first lockdown with the speed. Yeah, and when you're coaching,
struggled yesterday.
It's so annoying. And so I was like, right, and I just bit the bullet and I just paid for the highest level of service. It was like, we have to get super fast Wi-Fi and broadband. I am not being sat here with my Zoom cutting out. So that's just a very practical number one. You've got to do that. The second thing I would say is, so my business is only 2.5 years old. Approaching 3 actually, and it's done phenomenally well according to what other people tell me. I don't know, because it's my first ever business and it's my first foray into entrepreneurship. And when I first started, I joined a mastermind, which was absolutely brilliant for connecting and for meeting new people and for keeping my energy high. But what I actually needed, looking back on that time, was to improve my business acumen. I needed to know what it meant to run a business, not really how to socialize with people. And that's fine. Being able to talk about your business, great, absolutely wonderful. However, if I had my time again, I would know my strengths and my weaknesses, and I would have done my due diligence on really understanding where I had gaps. And then I would have sought advice from those who had been in a similar position to me, who had contacts and connections that could possibly help. And finding a good coach or mentor who has the experience in that situation that you need help in. So I think when we first start out, we can be either overcautious about how we spend our money, or we can be frivolous and we can just spend it anywhere. But I really, really struggled with the business acumen, which is why, Piers, what you provide at the moment with the new startups is fantastic. Simply knowing what you need to know is one of the most important things, I think. Back to you, Alex.
Alex, I'm going to plug my course now.
Go for it.
Yeah, I know online courses can be the bane of people's lives sometimes, but it's how I tend to learn most things. I'm just going to post on Twitter a link to it actually. So I get asked questions all the time about starting a business and advice, right? And what struck me over the years is that I get asked the same questions all the time, and it's I enjoy answering the questions when I can at the time, but it became quite frustrating. So I thought what I should do, and going back to what you just said there actually, is create like a mini course and videos. I do content and videos like that, but more structured. So I kind of thought about what is it you need to know to start a business or grow a reasonably new business, or in some cases, you've got a business that you haven't really thought about it too seriously and you want to scale it up. So what do you need to know? So I kind of distilled, wrote down, looked at other courses and put all this thing in sort of post-it notes about what it should cover. I thought I'll make a few videos. Anyway, 76 video lessons later, 10.5 hours of content. And it's a bit like I'm actually streaming this now. It's a bit like me sitting here at my desk talking to you. But when people call me and say, Piers, can we have a coffee? I want to ask you about something, or someone nobbles me in Starbucks. It's like having about 200 of those coffees with me and having the opportunity to ask me about any particular part of building, everything from mindset to your wellness to legally, how do you establish a business? Is that a partnership or a company? All the way through to digital marketing. And there are some things that I don't know a huge amount about, so I didn't put them in there, to be quite frank. So I created this course, and I could have put it out. It's called startup.pierslinney.com. And that actually is, and the idea behind it was that once you go through these courses, is that you can then approach it as if you've almost done it before and you've made all these mistakes, because most entrepreneurs, they make a huge number of mistakes because you haven't done it before and you haven't got access to the right people to help you and guide you to avoid falling into those potholes. I mean, I'm starting a business now, and I do things that, and I kind of look back and think, well, how did I know? I automatically thought of doing that. Most entrepreneurs wouldn't have a clue about, hiring, structuring, POE, POE, NI, structuring options scheme, how you structure options, how you grant options, how they should vest, how you should link that to someone's compensation. All these things, that you sort of know you've done it before, are obstacles and time-consuming, worrisome issues that most entrepreneurs face when they're starting out for the first time. So that's why I created a course. I'm not really plugging it. I'm starting a new business, and I think if you become a member of my new business, I might give it away for free. But that's why I created that course, exactly for that reason, because it's painful to hear entrepreneurs and people asking the same questions and falling into the same holes.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, Piers. Make sure you are clicking on his profile. Put your notification bell from sometimes to always, and then you'll be able to see whenever Piers goes live, and you can follow him through to Instagram to find more about all of those resources. So we're going to go to Rachel next, and then Zoe, and then I know we've got Mike flashes from Beju and Marvin and Jeanette as well. We've also got questions. We've got Alicia and Juliet, so I'm going to mix it up. We are going to get through everybody because there's loads to share here, and we've got a super busy room, over 100 people now. Nearly 500 people since we started, which is epic. So let us go to Rachel. Always got fantastic advice. What would you do if you needed to start a business in 2021?
Okay, thank you, Alex. Good morning, Piers. Good morning, everybody. I think for me, like real basic information, if you're going to start a business in 2021 or any year, you've got to have something that people want to buy. You've got to have a solution to a problem. It doesn't even have to sometimes be a solution to a real problem. It can just be something that somebody wants, that they desire, that they have to have it, like right there, right then, that they're going to spend money on. So it has to have a value to it. And so I think more so in 2021, we have to get really close to who our customer is, who they are, what they want, why they want it, and be able to see our product or service through the lens of our customer. Because ultimately, they are the most important person in any business. And if we don't stay really close to what our customers need and want, then we run the risk of getting out of touch with our marketplace. So I used to always think that when I started a business, I either needed to be first or best. So if you're first in a market, then you've got to be a serious innovator. Most of us are rarely first in a sector. So then you have to think, well, okay, how do I be the best? How do I have that product or service that's the best in my market? And the best way, or the best advice I would give anybody for that would be to not approach a big market, like niche down so small that you have a chance, that you at least stand a chance of being the best in that market. So to demonstrate the point, if I wanted to be a social media manager, and help people with their social media, I can't be the first because that spot's already taken. I can't be the best in that market because there's millions of people who do that. So how do I become the best? I have to niche down. I have to say, what social media channel do I focus on? Which types of entrepreneurs do I specifically help? And I have to niche that down to such a point that I stand the chance of having something unique, something highly valuable to help a very small sector of people, so that I can build that brand that positions me as the first choice. So I would say to anybody starting a business, see it through the lens of the customer, see it through the lens of what are they going to value and why are they going to value it, and then niche yourself down into a market that's so small that you have a chance of being the standout person, and then build your brand around that. And when you've nailed that, then you can expand your niche and go and tackle a complementary market or a different market. But yeah, that would be my advice. Super simple, but very important.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. I'm sure Piers had this a million times like me as well. When somebody says to you, "My product is for everybody," and it's like, it's not a proper answer.
Yeah, I think it's like you can go to look nuance. There are nuances. So I think number one is, if you're raising external money from people, I don't care who it is, your mum or venture capital, right? They're going to want it back. So often, if you're raising, people don't often understand this. You raise, I don't know, £100,000, 10% of your company. You value your company at £1 million. If somebody wants to 3 times their money, at least for that kind of investment at that stage, probably 20 times more like, you then got to sell your business for 5 million. So if you're selling a business for 5 million, you've got to think very hard about, what is your, without getting into all the jargon, your sort of total addressable market. And sometimes that market's got to be quite big. Now, if you're building a business around yourself and you want it to be a lifestyle business, then absolutely right. You can drill down into a niche, because the beauty of niches used to be a nightmare, because you go down to your local library, invite some people around, and that was kind of it. Whereas now you can create an enormous business out of a niche, because there are many, many people, millions all around the world, interested in that particular niche. So if you can access them through the internet, you can actually create some value for them, sell them something, and make some money. So I think it depends on what kind of business it is you want to create, what your aspirations are in terms of what the scale should be and what kind of market you should be going after. But I think that the other thing I would add is that, the other thing to do is to differentiate, and that's where people create real value. You don't have to be, are you saying, just saying there, invent something new, just do something. You have to be the best. It's got to be better in some cases, because most services, the way they're delivered, or even the way the code's written, isn't particularly good. So you haven't got to be the best. You just got to be materially better, and also potentially just better at marketing as well. And lots of people that sell, they might sell bricks. Lots of people sell bricks, but they're better at marketing bricks. So they sell more bricks and they make more money, and they've got scale, so they have more margin. So I think you've got to be cognizant of what your aspirations are and what your stakeholders are expecting you to do as well.
Thank you, Piers. So I've just muted a mic there. We've got people with questions as well, and lots more from the panel to contribute. Your mic, we will do a reset as we've gone past the hour. Yeah, so we'll go to Zoe, then Lindsay. I'll get you to do a reset of the room. We'll then take a question, and then I know we've got shares coming from Jeanette and Beju, and Natalia and Marvin, etc., etc. So lots to get through, and Lauren as well. Fantastic. So loads to get through. Let's go to Zoe, and then Lindsay, if you could reset the room, and then we have got first question from Alicia after that.
Hi everybody. This might be a good time to come in with my point then. So I'm an example of somebody who has niched. I'm an accountant. I used to run a bookkeeping practice, and last year during lockdown I started a community with another bookkeeper, 4 bookkeepers who wanted to start and scale their bookkeeping practices. Now, like you said, if we were doing that locally, we might have a handful of people, but actually across the country, and we're in the States and lots of people in Ireland as well, we've built a community of 2,000 bookkeepers, and I think it's because we've niched, we've been able to do that really well. So I think I definitely echo the point that Rachel was making about niching, but also I think the thing that has really helped us grow the business at this particular time is building a community at a time when people are really lacking community and really missing people. Actually, my business partner and I have only met in real life about 4 times. We met at conferences. She lives in Kent, I live in South Wales. We've met at conferences a couple of times and sort of spoke on the phone about this idea we had for this business, and we've done everything virtually online. I mean, we've kind of had to do that anyway because we live so far away, but I think it shows what you can do online if you put your mind to it. But really building a business around that niche and creating a community for that niche has helped us. And I think anybody who has when you have a product or a service, and you've decided who you're selling it to, see whether there is an opportunity to build a community. There will be other communities doing what you do. There are loads of groups. We have a Facebook group. There are loads of Facebook groups for bookkeepers, but we're different, and we're different because we talk about different kind of stuff. We're different people, and think about how you can stand out and how you can do that differently to the other people doing the same kind of thing, and that will make a difference. It's been an incredible year for us, and I really see there is an opportunity to build some brilliant communities and businesses off the back of that. Thank you.
I think I'll just kick in there quickly. So communities, I'm a big believer in this, and my new business actually is completely based around a community. So it's a community of small business owners, so startups, small business owners that want to stay small, and people, they've got aspirations to grow. but the community, I think, is absolutely the way forward. That's how you build a relationship. It's how people get to know you, they understand you, the products, how you learn from your community. It's symbiotic. It's a two-way street. I mean, that absolutely is how you build a customer base these days. It's a community, and hopefully over time they engage with you and buy your products or services.
They also sell to other people in the community.
Yeah,
when
absolutely
you've got
right. Yeah.
raving fans, they will sell it for you.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that, and that's why we've been so successful this year.
And
because
that
other
is a
people have
real,
already been through it.
yeah. Sorry, that is how you create real value in a community. It's not just about you engaging with them, that kind of two-way street. It's actually the community interacting with each other. That is the holy grail. So whatever you're doing, you're getting it right.
What was the communication, the mobile company Piers we were talking about, who did that really, really well? I've forgotten who it is now.
Yeah, there's a chap called Robbie Hearn, actually. They've been working with him recently. And he worked for Telefonica for a while and created a gift gap community, essentially. So he worked for a cable company, and he learned there where they used to invite customers around to a Muse house in London somewhere to have pizzas and talk them through the service and feedback, and worked really well. And he took those learnings and helped build that kind of gift gap community. And he went off to build various communities within Telefonica, and he spun out the business. So now he's got another business, and he runs the communities for the likes of the host community, Airbnb globally. So he's like an expert in building communities about how you go about it. And one of the things that came out of that is what I was just saying there, is that the real holy grail is for your community participants to interact with each other. Another thing to have is to have a really good community manager, someone that is day in, day out in there, talking to the community and engaging with them and really understanding them, and and not selling, but what you can do is get a huge amount of feedback from your community about your product or service, and then you can use that to iterate it and improve it. But most big companies, I would add, is they are trying to build communities. When you look at them, all they're really trying to do at the end of the day is reduce their support overhead. and that can work to a degree. But I don't think for the kind of community that just described, that's the holy grail at all. It's about building an engaged base of people that may one day hopefully buy your products or services.
Thank you, Piers. Just before we continue, Alex is having a mare with the app. He currently can't press anything, so I'm going to do a quick reset, and hopefully he will be back in the room after that. So for those of you that have just joined, welcome. You are in the Alex and Sabrina Show Club. Today we've got Alex in the aqua blue, and then Piers Linney, who are here hosting the room today, talking all about how to start a business in 2021. We've already been speaking about startup loans, communities, and I think there's going to be a couple of other golden gems that are going to be spoken about shortly. We've got a whole host of panelists. Some of them are regular, some of them are new faces, so it's lovely to see you. Thank you for giving up your time today. And if you have just joined the room and you haven't yet had chance to kind of gauge what's been going on, maybe you know that you've missed some questions, we are taking notes in the background. So if you just DM Alex the word business, then we will go send you through the notes. We wrap 24 to 48 hours afterwards, but please bear with us because we will make sure that we get them over to you. Also, if you can make sure you are following Alex and Piers, they are speaking in mostly Alex speaks in his own rooms. I think he's got enough to be getting on with, but Piers is speaking in other rooms as well. So it is always good to follow them and change that alarm notification from sometimes to always, so that you get notified when they're speaking in other rooms and running their own clubs. And do make sure you give that little Monopoly house a follow as well. And that means that you'll get notified when a room is running live under the Alex and Sabrina Show Club. And I know there's quite a lot being hosted under there. I think Polly has a power hour every lunchtime. I know Jeanette has a room this evening at 6 p.m. and there's lots of other incredible speakers that are hosting rooms under that club, so it's one not to be missed. Do also make sure that you are following people on the stage that are speaking. Of course, you don't have to, but you may be listening to them and want to hear more from them. They all have their own clubs, I think, pretty much, but if not, they are definitely speaking in other stages throughout the day. And do make sure that you are looking around who's in the audience. There's quite a lot of people in the audience today, which is fantastic to see some new party poppers as well. So welcome to Clubhouse. You are in the best room, obviously. Do make sure you're having a little look at people's bios and give yourself the opportunity to fill out your bio if you haven't done so already, because you'll be surprised at how many people are tapping on your profile picture whilst listening in rooms, looking to see if you are the person that could be the next best fit for their business. Maybe they want to do a Clubhouse room with you. Maybe they want to purchase something from you. So if your bio is not complete, they won't be able to do that. So a little tip for you there. We do have hand raising on, as long as you've got some information in your bio. So for example, I can see Franklin, you've got your hand up, but there's nothing in your bio, so I can't bring you up at the moment. And Roshan, you haven't got an external link filled in. So if you can fill those things in before raising your hand, that will be super helpful. It will take you 2 seconds to go and do that, and then re-raise your hand, and then we can bring you up onto stage. We do have some other people that are up on stage with a question. So Alex, give me a mic flash if you're back and alive and kick in. I'm going to say that, oh, hello, we had a pulse.
It stopped glitching. I had those 3 crazy dots that we've all had this week on the app. I don't know what's going on this week. It's been very
It's quite interesting, Clubhouse, isn't it? The tech and the story. I suppose we cover that in another room.
Or the lack of tech, you mean?
Wow. It's not looking great in its numbers.
Yeah, I think the tech's just about as strong as my game is with this blooming pod track. Hey, although I've seen Alex has sent me a video which I do need to watch.
You have everything you need now to stream live.
I cannot wait. Well, I need to engage my brain, but I can't promise that will ever work. So, Alex, did you want to say anything else before we go on to the next question?
No, I'm all good. I think we had a question, and then we had a bunch of shares from like Beju, Jeanette, Marvin, etc. as well, Natalia.
Cool. So I think we'll go. Is it Mitchell? Have you got a question? Give me a flash if you have.
Oh no, Mitch is here on the panel, but we've got Alicia and then Gaurav.
Fabulous. Okay, so let's go to Alicia. Alicia, what is your question?
Hello everyone, thanks for this opportunity. I'm Elisha. I have these 2 ideas I'm really interested in working on. It's a technological app, and I have very little idea on technology. I'm looking at getting a mentor. I'm looking out for getting a mentor and someone I can actually partner with, someone who has enough idea on technology. I have a little description of those ideas in my bio. What would be your advice to someone like me who does not have much idea on technology and wants to go into technology? Thank you. Done speaking.
Yeah, Alicia, your descriptions are pretty brief, mate. You've got a library platform for schools and organization, and then the second one just says appointment. What does that mean?
You're on mute, Alicia. I don't know if you realise.
You there, Alicia? Yeah, there you go.
Sorry.
Yeah, it says appointment. What do you mean by appointment?
Where we can connect to people personally.
So give me a use case. Give me an example.
Tell them where you can tell them why you actually want to meet them, like meeting professionals. You send them, you tell them why you actually want to meet them, and if they accept it, they book an appointment with you, and then they notify you, and then you meet with them online.
Well, okay. Probably can't go delving into your particular businesses. Well, that sounds like LinkedIn really, and a good kind of in-mail. So you've got to be slightly careful. You're not reinventing wheels. But I think the point is that technology is obviously very important if you want to build an app. Finding the money to build an app can be quite hard work as well, because there is a cost involved in that. I think the key always is, and people forget this, is to try and work out what I mean. There you just described a problem. Now, whether that's a problem that needs solving or has already been solved, I'm not entirely sure. It sounds like it may have been solved, to be honest with you. But the point is about finding that problem you think that needs solving, and then working out how you think you can solve it. And then don't worry about technology quite yet. Worry about testing your hypothesis, testing that idea. And in the most basic case, you can do a PowerPoint presentation, or you can use various software now you can use to do kind of clickable prototypes. There's no real code behind it. It's just showing that if you did this and you click that, this would happen next, and that's what the person would see, and that's what then you can do, and that's how you would communicate with them. So you can use clickable sort of prototypes essentially. So don't spend any money, especially if money is something that's quite hard to come by, and try and prove and then use it and get out of the house and go and talk to people and say, look, that's what I'm thinking of doing. here's a prototype. It might be in PowerPoint, it might be clickable, and explain to them how it works and get feedback. And the feedback, that can be family and friends, it can be people you don't know. I'd make it as wide as possible, to be honest with you, and take that feedback and listen to it. That's the other key. I've been guilty in the past. You think you know everything and you don't listen. I've learned to listen. So my new business is very much about the people involved, know more about a lot of it than I do, and I listen to them. So the key is get out there, test it, and then take that feedback. And the feedback may be that, there isn't a need for that product, then move on to the next one. But don't worry about technology yet. And then when you have to think, okay, well, this actually works, there's a need for this, then you have to go back to the video I mentioned earlier about how to raise startup finance. Because if you want to build an app, if you're not an engineer yourself, software engineer, then you're going to need some assistance, and that can cost some money. But again, do it incrementally, keep it simple, get it out there, test it, get the feedback, iterate it, learn, listen, and build it back into your application and grow from there. But what I was saying in a very labored way is focus on the problem and the solution. Don't worry too much about the actual, what type of software platform you're going to use to develop it. Keep it simple. Is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Piers. I think Lindsay's going to jump on a call, so thank you, Alicia, for your question. Just going to move you back to the audience to keep the stage organized. So I'm going to go next to show me that you are there, Mike Flashes. So we're going to go to Beju and then Jeanette, and then I'm going to keep looking. There's Marvin as well. So if you were to start a business in 2021, what do you need? What's changed, guys? Or are things still the same? So over to you, Beju, and then Jeanette. And I know we've got Gaurav with his question as well.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Yeah, great. Really good morning this morning. It appears really great advice. The barrier to entry to starting a business is very low now. Technology is every sort of bit of technology, whether it's automation or emails, you can get for free or very low cost. So the barrier to entry to start a business is very low. However, where people fail is they don't plan to understand what type of business they want to run and putting systems in place. I would guess, and this is just anecdotal evidence, that I reckon 70% of startups aren't looking to initially raise finance. They're looking to create maybe a lifestyle business, something that sort of gives them a lifestyle they want. They've left corporate life. They're not interested necessarily in creating an empire. And I reckon a high percentage of those don't really need investment from investors. They probably maybe need some capital up front, which could be, sort of loans and stuff, but as long as it's managed well. So, this is sort of my take, but also pushing back to Piers, thinking, yes, a lot of what you talked about is so relevant for people who want to raise finance and want to create structure around sort of creating a business that sort of creates an empire more than a lifestyle. There's a huge amount that don't want to do that. Sometimes when they hear these ideas about raising finance from different areas and having to get share options in place, it can overwhelm them. So it's really important. If you're starting a business, ask yourself, why am I starting this business? Is it for freedom, which it probably is, but is it for creating my own lifestyle? And then they go, where do I need to start? So going back to what Rachel said, she's not on the stage now, where find something where there's a demand in the business or something that's you're passionate about, but also understand if it's a passion, is there a business behind it? Because people fall into trap thinking because it's a passion project and because it's something that you love, other people will love it and you can grow a business. And that's not the case. I was watching Dragon's Den last week and somebody had this idea. I can't remember, it was a pet thing, but it was a great lifestyle business, but not an investable business. Not something whereby they needed finance, needed external finance from an investor. They could have raised it on credit cards and stuff. So it's understanding what type of business you want to run and being clear about that. And then all the principles are the same. You've got to make sure you understand what infrastructure you need in place. If it's online, is it a B2C, B2B? Getting things in place and getting teams like the things like Upwork and People Per Hour that you can literally hire a team. There's a lady, I can't remember who, said she's only met her business partner 4 times. And most of my team, or all of my team, are virtually out there. You don't need offices. So, and it's okay to ask yourself all of those questions while you're thinking about starting your business early on. Don't think, oh, when I'm ready, I don't need it now. Think about those things. It means that It's like you say you want to create humongous, great wedding cakes. You might start off with the Victoria sponge, but if you get the Victoria sponge right, it's easier to make the bigger cakes. So the principles are the same. So ask yourself, what type of business do I run? Is it eventually a lifestyle business? You don't want style. So if you actually ask yourself, if you got to a point whereby you could take 70, 80, 100, 200K out of your business, then that type of business, in terms of the principles you need to put in place, are the same, but there's different decisions you need to make and different things you can do. And it means that you don't get overwhelmed too easy, because when you get overwhelmed, you procrastinate. When you procrastinate, you don't take an action. Then you don't take an action, you overthink it, and you just don't get going. And before you know it, you've wasted 6 months, a year, 2 years before doing anything, whereby it's understanding, what do I really want to create? If you only want to generate 100K a year to take home, relatively speaking, it's easier to do, but get the right people around you, get the right infrastructure. But don't fall into trap thinking, oh my God, I need to start looking at venture capital and all these share options, if it's not the type of business you want to run. So understand what type of business you run, and then get the right people around you and take some early actions. That would be my take. I'm not sure whether Piers agrees or disagrees, but yeah, that'd be my take.
I'll actually wind back from that. I think like I was saying,
Beiji, what's your favourite cake?
My favourite cake depends if I'm here or Amsterdam.
Well, Alex, I was on mute then. I'd wind back from that, actually. So the average, like I was saying before, 74% of the UK's 5.7 million SMEs are sole traders. That's the majority of businesses. But I think the idea of people earning 80K a year, I mean, the average sole trader, small, very micro business, they're probably earning 20, 25. I'm quite happy with that to some extent. Right. So getting to 80 or 100 actually is, that involves some growth and some effort. So I think you're right. Like I was saying, the oxygen gets sucked out of the room by startups and tech and venture. That's not what, and that's absolutely what I'm saying. It's not what most businesses are actually about. It's interesting you were just saying there about the sort of skill and passion. I did another video where I had a model where to start a business or grow a business, you need to have passion, 3 things actually. And this is quite simplistic, but passion, skill, and a market. So I always say that if you haven't got a market, it's a hobby. If you haven't got the skill, it's probably not going to work out particularly well for you. And if you haven't got the passion, it's called a job. So they're the 3 things you need to kind of think about before you really throw everything you've got into that basket and take the risk of starting a business. But 100% agree with you that it's very easy to get lost in talking about raising money and venture. Most small businesses never do.
Yeah, they don't need to. And once you've got those 3 things, then it's like, okay, what's the low hanging fruit? And be realistic. You know, to get from 20K to 80K is an effort. It's a big effort, but it's not as complicated as it can be if you've got the right things in place and get in preparation. The best cakes is when you prepare more. When you prepare it right, the cake comes really nice. But I don't know where we go.
No, well, it's also about, so my new business is about helping small business owners be more successful by using technology. And the point is about, you might be baking cakes, but actually you're spending all your weekend, rather than learning about how to bake cakes or spending time with your children, doing bank reconciliations or worrying about how you sell stuff or chasing invoices. Technology can make your life a lot easier and help you grow your revenues, your income, if it's or reduce your costs. And in the middle of that is profit or more time to spend with doing other things you love doing. So I think technology it can empower small businesses, but the issue with technology is if you need to, develop some kind of like an app, for example, which is the common example, that can involve some investment ahead of generating revenue. And that's where, whether it's your own money or venture capital even, that's when you have to start thinking about raising finance.
Yeah. And the thing about there is technology makes it easier. And people shouldn't go think, oh, I'm not a techie person. It's using technology, but knowing what to use. So don't think you have to be a techie person to use technology. It's knowing where to look and asking the right questions. Just to let you know, Piers, I can see you while you're talking because I'm watching the Facebook Live, but that's just me.
I'm probably 7 seconds behind there.
You are.
I'm in a time warp or something like that. Yeah. But I think technology as well is people say I'm not techie, right? I was saying to Alicia, was it earlier? Is that don't get stuck on the technology. Get focus on the problem you want to solve. Be it a customer one, or be it one that I'm just bored of doing this nonsense every Sunday. How can I automate this or reduce the amount of time I spend on this ridiculous process? And look for technology to help you do that. So And we've all got supercomputers in our pockets with a myriad of different applications on there running that we all use. And you know how these things work, you know how you interact with them, you know what kind of user experience works, what kind of user interface works for you. So you've got some experience, even though you may not think you're a techie. And then if you understand your customers, you should be able to understand how they're best going to interact with the technology that you want to present to them. And then you have to communicate that to someone, or do it for a clickable sort of prototype to a developer to make it work for you in that way. And then just listen to your customers and feedback. There's no real rocket science to it. People think there is. You don't need to learn to write code. And within a generation, you know, computers will be writing code themselves.
They already are.
Well, yeah, that's true.
There you go. Thanks, Alex. Alex, what's your cake?
Me.
But my mum was banana cake.
No,
Absolute
coffee
winner.
and walnut,
There's a
guys.
business there.
I do like a carrot cake, but a good carrot cake, because Jeremy's
There he is. He's flashing. He's here.
I'm
Oh,
back.
yeah.
I heard cake, and I was like, right, come on. The
Go
best
on.
cake, Alex, is not coffee and walnut. You know what it is. It's Jeremy's brownies.
Oh, of course it is. Is that cake or is it
Is that a
brownie?
cake, Jeremy?
What's that, Beju?
Is that a cake?
Yeah, good question.
It is. It is.
Depends what room you're in. Depends what room you're in.
Hey, good conversation with 1,000 people in the room today. So popular subject. Let's go. Actually, Jeremy, you flash your mic. Are you there, Jeremy? Do you want to come in? And we're going to go to Jeanette then. What advice have you got, Jeremy, around starting a business in 2021? And then I'll go to Jeanette.
Yes, sorry, I've literally just joined the conversation. I was just talking about cake. What advice would I say? Yeah, I'm going to keep it simple. And sorry if I'm repeating what anyone said, but key thing for me is, I run daily rooms around helping startups and people run businesses. And I've just, even in 2021, I think it's so important to make sure you have a robust business plan in place and you're really understanding who your target market is. Social media and the world is getting busier and busier and busier, and as the barriers to entry for someone starting their business get lower and lower, more people are doing it. I was having a conversation with a good friend yesterday around, we are going to see a huge seismic shift over the next few years with everything that's gone on with the pandemic, of people really assessing what they're doing with their lives. And, we're seeing it on this platform a lot. So as the world gets busier and social media platforms gets busier, it's more and more important to make sure that you're really understanding who your target customer is, and not just on a level of, how old they are, whether they're male or female, what job they do, but, what concerns they have, what political views they have. All that sort of stuff is going to become more important. And that good old term we use on this platform a lot, which is niching down, getting very, very specific, starting with that niche target audience and then growing from there. So yeah, those would be my thoughts. Alex, that's Jeremy done speaking.
Thanks, Jeremy. We hadn't covered business planning, so I hope you're going to jump in on that one.
Yes. Can I do a little plug? If you want a free copy of my business template, then send me the word plan and I'll send you a copy. Thank you.
No problem at all. Jeanette, over to you, hosting a room in 5-6 hours, in fact.
I know, it's exciting. And tonight we're going to be talking about the 7 habits of highly effective people based on the book by Stephen Covey. So it's going to be a good one tonight. So come along, 6 o'clock, all welcome. So I think just the point I wanted to contribute really is that I think it's a really exciting time right now to be in business. And of course, it's been tough for many businesses over the last 16 months or so. But what I'm seeing in the world that I work in, around advising businesses how to scale and grow, I do a lot of mergers and acquisitions, etc. But I'm seeing the emergence of lots of different business models. And, when there are lots of changes happening in the economic environment, in the business world, you will always have winners and losers for sure. But certainly what I'm seeing come through with some of the startup businesses that I work with as advising them is an emergence of new business models. So I'll give you an example. There's a business I've just literally been on a call with called Midnight Deal. And this is a business I sit on the board of the Founders Factory, which was set up by Brent Hoberman of lastminute.com. And this particular business, it's in the travel space, which is sort of my core background. And actually, it's a reverse auction model for people essentially that will be able to put a bid in for a holiday. So it's a really innovative way to pricing. So as I say, that's just one example. But I think if you're open-minded, you're quite creative, now is a great time to disrupt the existing business models. And I think there is a lot of pent-up money that needs to be deployed to invest in great startup businesses or businesses that want to scale and grow as well. So yeah, I don't know if you're seeing that, Piers, with the businesses that you work with, so almost this disruption around doing things in a very different way to maybe the traditional way that sometimes that has been forced through necessity of the current scenario. But equally, I think that provides great investment opportunities and also opportunities for people that have maybe got a great idea and actually how can they make that into a reality. So yeah, disrupting the model, Alex, is what I would say is a common theme right now. So I'm Jeanette and I'll pass the mic back.
Yeah, let's come back on that. So I think COVID actually has accelerated the pace of technological adoption. So you've seen, especially online shopping, for example, it was growing at sort of 1% a year over the last decade. Is expected to continue, maybe accelerate slightly. It's grown by 10-15% in a year. It's not going backwards, and so people are more used to using this kind of technology or video conferencing. So I think the disruptors, your real kind of tech, your real innovators, you're seeing that there's no real slowdown in pace there. There's still a lot of capital out there to back them. I think it's a sort of a two sides to the coin there. The other side of the coin, though, is if you're in a business that's been impacted, then it's been a time where you've had to maybe pivot or innovate or reach new customers or serve customers or support customers in new ways, and you've been able to do that and thrive. And others have struggled. So I think it is the time for optimism, absolutely. And I think that our small businesses and entrepreneurs and our high growth businesses, they are absolutely the key. The way in which we climb out of the hole the economy's found itself in, and they should be supported. Now, another thing, another video I just tweeted actually on Twitter that Alex helped me sort of promote as well, which is I did a video about my 11 top tips of how to survive and thrive, during coming out of this pandemic and coming out of what was a recession. And what's been quite interesting about the kind of recession, I suppose, which is the deepest in the last 300 years, is that we have, I'm not using the bounce back loan scheme as a pun, but we have kind of bounced back. So small businesses after last recession, 2008-07 financial crash, about a third disappeared, the research showed, but they bounced back very, very quickly, and they're very resilient because it's about people and individuals and their dreams, aspirations, and their livelihoods as well. So it is a time to be optimistic. It is a time to be disruptive, and I think that disruption doesn't always mean you have to go, take on the giants and try and build some software platform. And when I had my paper round when I was 13 years old, I disrupted my local newsagent because I delivered Sundays personally on Sundays when they couldn't be bothered them operating, or they were kind of messing around. They weren't actually doing delivery. You had to go and pick it up from the shop. So I said, well, hang on, I'll buy it from the wholesaler and deliver them. So I kind of killed their local Sunday business, and that was me disrupting on a very small scale, but you can do.
Yeah, 100%, Piers. That's it. It doesn't have to always be the big ideas. It's often the small things that make the biggest difference and impact. So yeah, great. Thanks, Piers. Really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeanette. So let's go to remind me who's still there. We're running over, so I know, Piers, you've got to go. We'll go to Marvin and then Natalia. But if you've got to go, Piers, very shortly, do.
Yeah, about 5 minutes.
Yeah, okay. So if we can get a couple of quick shares from anybody who's we haven't been to. It's been a super busy room, guys. We've got over 1,000 people in the room, so we will run this one again. But Marvin, let's go to you first, buddy.
Excellent. Thanks, Alex. And good to be here again with you, Piers, also. I'll keep it super brief so you can sort of move on. But I love what, I know Rachel's not here now, but what she said regarding target audience is the one question that keeps getting asked on this platform, apart from, how do I grow my Instagram followers? But yeah, so many people really don't spend enough time doing a deep dive into the target audience and really sort of developing that persona. So I'm glad that conversation got raised in the room, along with what Zoe said about community. Because from my perspective, I tie that to kind of sales really. When you're actually trying to approach, especially with larger organizations, so there's something, a sales methodology that's linked to Miller Hyman, where you're actually looking, not just selling to the key decision maker, but looking at all of the stakeholders that are involved. Because nine times out of 10, if you actually don't engage those as well, that's where the deal kind of falls over. Do you know what I mean? You need to be sort of developing those champions within the organizations, as well as sort of selling to the key decision maker also. But the thing I wanted to share was really around sort of business plans, because for me, when people are looking at business plans, they'll look at an overview of their business and explaining products and services and an overview of the marketplace, startup costs, competition evaluation, SWOT analysis, and so on, even a marketing plan. But for me, they kind of look at it as a two-dimensional thing and leave out the actual road mapping piece. And that's where I think people can lose momentum, I suppose, over time. They have this business plan and, don't treat it as an organic thing, because obviously things change. And they don't do the necessary road mapping to think, right, where do I want to be in 1 year? Where do I want to be in 5 years? And then do the backcasting from that, look at the key sort of milestones and how they actually get to those milestones, rather than just, taking too much of a large bite. So I just wanted to sort of throw that into the conversation, really, because I think road mapping is something that is also sort of not used enough in the process, really. But yeah, I've got a question also for Piers. Alex, I don't know if you want to go around quickly, or if I got time to throw that in.
No, go on, go ahead.
Do it now before he goes. Yeah, go, Marvin.
Yeah, brilliant. So
I'll just say very quickly though on your comments
sure.
though, 'cause I know you do sales now, but your point is right. So when you're selling to very large companies, which I have done, then you need to have a matrix sales sort of strategy in terms of the champions and understand who rolls up to make that decision. It can be finance, commercial, product, sales, marketing, who knows, a buyer in the organization. So that's really, really important. I think you're right. Even in smaller companies, sometimes you can think you're selling to somebody, but you're not. They haven't got the authority, they haven't got the budget, they haven't got the need at that particular time, and they haven't got the compelling event, for example. So sales is something that, if you're in any business, you need to understand sales strategy, and you need to understand how it works. Marketing is increasingly a science because it's very digital nowadays. You can measure it. Sales, especially B2B sales, if it's face-to-face, that's a skill, and that's something you can learn and hire people and know what they're doing if you're not particularly good at it. Anyway, onto your question.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with you there, 100%. And I've seen sort of deals fall over because, the operations manager wasn't involved in the conversation, and he's there throwing a spanner in the works as soon as you walk away and you think you've had a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, you get not invented here syndrome. Yeah,
exactly. So my question was very, very quick one, because I know you've got to shoot off, but as we're all here on this platform, and the conversation around Clubhouse is an ever-changing one. I guess my question is what would you sort of suggest as the next steps for a company like Clubhouse, looking at what they've done? Is there anything that you would have done differently? Or what would you actually sort of suggest as the next steps? I'm just interested to know, because there's probably a lot of tech startups.
I'm not going to try and second guess Clubhouse or Andreessen Horowitz and what they see. What I do know is that I know people have invested in the business at a 4 billion valuation, which is quite interesting. Andreessen Horowitz seems to have done almost all the funding, every round. I think there are some angels in there, individuals. I don't know how much they put in, probably 100 million, whatever it is, and they get that money out first if it's ever sold. And I heard in the grapevine, I was listening to the All In podcast, saying that Twitter approached Clubhouse now at a 4 billion valuation as well. So that might be nonsense. It might be a urban myth. Who knows? But it's interesting seeing their numbers, because usually with social platforms, the idea clearly is that you get this geometric progression, and that's what you saw on Facebook. And in Clubhouse, what you've seen is almost like a bell curve. So you've seen it grow from, a couple of tens of thousands to 1 million to sort of almost 10 million, then drop down to 2 million. It's dropped down again. And that's after, I think, they turned on the Android users as well. So it's interesting to see what happens. Is whether it's, I think there's definitely a use case. There's definitely a need for it. Hence, we're all here and we're using it. I think it's definitely an innovation. How it's going to pan out in terms of whether, Twitter wins out because all the Android users went there first on Twitter Spaces, remains to be seen. But usually these sort of social media platforms, the idea is that you get exponential growth and you get that kind of network effect, and they create this sort of social graph. Whereas this is kind of boomed and bust. So whether that's because everyone was in lockdown, sitting around thinking, "What the hell can I do?" And everyone spent hours a day on Clubhouse, listening to various rooms. Whether that, and people are busy now, they've got other things to do. That's not going to happen. I don't know. I think it's going to be really interesting to see where this kind of audio experience goes, because I think it's got huge legs. When you're static, it's a lot easier. Obviously, it's still easier than video. You don't have to be looking into a camera. When you're static, and even when you're moving around, Clubhouse was quite easy. But people now have got places to go, people to see, things to do. It becomes a lot harder. So I don't know. I don't know whether not selling at a 4 billion valuation was a bad idea. Instagram sold it was $1 billion, was it? And it's probably worth 50 times that now. It's probably worth more than Facebook, actually. So you never know these deals. Only time will tell. I'm not going to pretend that I know the answer to that. But what is interesting is the Clubhouse numbers, because that's not what you would have expected.
Excellent. Thanks, Piers. That's great insight. Thanks. Cheers, Alex.
Cheers, Marvin. Yeah, great question. And I'm like all of you, interested to see what happens and whether it becomes another feature that every single social media platform has. That certainly seems to be a direction it's going with. Twitter and then Facebook talking about having an audio element to it as well.
And also they've got literally a live user test for them, which is Clubhouse. They can just watch that and see what works, and they've got several hundred developers that can just knock one up.
Yeah, 100%. And whether, again, we see the seasons changing in different countries and people hibernating a little bit more come the autumn and the winter and utilising it more, it'll be really interesting to see. So, Piers, I know you've got to go, I think.
Yep, I better shoot. I'm going to have to go and do some work. But thank you for having me again. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, pleasure as always. Super busy room. So thank you, Piers. I will get a couple more shares before